Okay, look, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's actually good. You know, it was a good time.
The universe has sent you a gift, and you have to figure out what you're gonna do with it. That's my mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5.
Whatever you can imagine, I can create.
Let's party.
Yeah! Nice choice.
I just wanna rap.
And today we have Blue Beetle. Very, very late Blue Beetle, might I add. Like, I wanted to see it, and what sucks is that, like, when it was given IMAX showings, but old Mr. Nolan, old Chris Nolan, here with Oppenheimer, as good as Oppenheimer was, he had the market cornered on IMAX for so long. Propositioned my friend group of moviegoers to go see it, nobody was biting for some reason. But here we are. I had a free slot available in my non-existent availability. Have Regal Unlimited. I knew I'd be able to see a standard showing for free. I gotta give it its day in court. One of the last of the few DC films, or the old DCU films, before we make the murky transition into what hopefully will be the new canon of James Gunn and the DCU, which I've mentioned before in some reviews, but I'm not going to get too much into it now. Blue Beetle is directed by Angel Manuel Soto. He's a Puerto Rican filmmaker. So, I mean, between that and the cast and the whole everything into this film, I believe what would you call it these days? The Latinx community? I'm very ignorant. What I'm trying to say is the representation is there. All the appropriate representation is there, and I'm happy to see it. My notes say he hasn't made a whole lot of stuff. The most recent thing he did was a mini-series called Menudo Forever Young, and the other more recent film that he's done is something called Charm City Kings. I know what neither of those things are. It's probably just due to my lack of exposure. I'm sure his other stuff is good. Not gonna get too much into the whole family or anything, but I didn't even look it up. What's wrong with me? Zolo? I think you'd say Zolo, like xylophone, but Zolo Meraduena, I believe. But he's an actor, obviously, but most well known now for this, but also in the best series that I have not watched at all, but it's several seasons. I think it finally ended recently, ? But the reviews are always great. Cobra Kai, he's in Cobra Kai. I keep hearing it's a good show. And then arguably the other lead, the gal that he runs into that gives him the scarab and that gets this whole thing going, Bruna Marquezine, I believe that's how you say it. She's an actress and model, and when I tell you this woman is, she's gorgeous. 100%. She is drop dead, stunning, gorgeous. Good casting. I see what you were doing there. Also, it's cool seeing George Lopez. We all like George Lopez. So, Blue Beetle, what is there to say? I think it's a case of, like, good movie, bad timing. As I'm sure you're all aware, comic book movies, especially with Disney and Marvel, they're just like boom, 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 movie, show, miniseries, movie, short film, all just like going on and on and on. We had the golden age, in my opinion, what I refer to as the golden age of the MCU, which spans from Iron Man to Endgame, and even a little bit after that. I got no complaints about the likes of WandaVision or like the first season of Loki. There's still some good stuff. There's still some good Marvel movies here and there. DCU, as I've made apparent on my channel, is much more hit and miss. They've made some good films, they've made some bad films, and in my opinion, I'm not going to get into the whole James Gunn versus the Zack Snyder fandoms and all that, but I'm welcoming a refresh of the system here. But it's weird because I guess what's the sunk cost fallacy? These last few DCU movies, they've already been made, so they're just kind of like getting them out there real quick before they, shake the Etch-a-Sketch. What's unfortunate is that due to what people are referring to as that, like the comic book movie burnout, our baseline for this kind of film has dramatically changed and shifted, so that when the trailer came out for this, I was like, oh, neat, but I don't care. Like, it didn't have any especially unique qualities aside from the representation and its unique cast that stood out to me. All that being said, I hold myself to a certain standard when it comes to what I do. Who am I to judge, right? But I will only judge it if I have seen it. Like anything else in life, until I cannot adequately or fairly judge or speak on something if I haven't tried it, seen it, experienced it. I said, look, I'm gonna go see Blue Beetle at the very least, so I'll know what's up. End of the day, not as bad as I thought it was. It was actually. I mean, it was good. It wasn't great. There were some like nice little like kind of great moments here and there. A few, not a lot, but it's good. It's solid. It could have been a lot worse. I've seen a lot worse, let alone this year. I think what really drives the film for me is like I like the cast a lot. We have ourselves some endearing protagonists. The family. I cared. Like I get everybody from the main character, Jaime, which I learned. And from this movie, I didn't know they didn't say, like, I should have known, right? Like, they don't say Jimmy. It's like Jaime. There's, like, strong family values and actually a lot of commentary on, like, classism and the idea that this character that is going to become the Blue Beetle is a kid out of college who wants to help his struggling family but can't even get, like, a well-paying job. And because of this situation is now thrust into the spotlight, as it were, and is trying to use it not to like get fame and accolades and all that. At the end of the day, he still wants to help his family. I mean, himself, of course, as well. But like he really cares about him, and the family's all great. The grandmother, I think the grandmother was my favorite, the highlight. She was literally a revolutionary. It was pretty fun. It was a nice little like dipping of the toe into the Blue Beetle lore. Although they don't expand too much upon it, I mean, this is a superhero that I knew nothing about. Everything that I've been learning about superheroes, aside from the big obvious ones, I don't learn it from comics. I see it from whatever adaptations come up. The big Hollywood blockbuster films, the miniseries, whatever characters the DC or the MCU, whether it's the heroes, the rogues gallery, most of what I learn is through that form of media. But it was nice learning about this character, although I feel like the premise is we've seen it before, kid randomly thrust into having these new powers, and there's the hijinks ensue as they learn how it works and how to control it, and then have to end up fighting an evil and trying to save the day, and it's like kind of coming of age, especially if they're like a younger kid like Jaime is. So I mean it works. It's formulaic, but it works. I like the 80s style to it. It's not like in your face 80s, but between the opening credits, a lot of the music used throughout, and especially when we get to acts 2 and 3, a lot of like kind of like the blue, the purple, the neon lights and all this. It's and when they find tech that's used by the original Blue Beetle back in the 80s, it's like I love that like synth wave vibe type of deal. So I feel like that combined with the whole like Latin culture and everything, it mixes well. And although his outfit leans more in the way of like high concept science fiction, there's still like some 80s inspiration there. I think the last positive thing I had to say, aside from, I don't mean there's nothing else positive to say, but the fight choreography is pretty decent. I gotta give props. The direction is good. In terms of use in these comic book films, it very often is that the editing is quick, it's choppy, it's shaky, it can be hard to follow, and even though nothing revolutionary happens in a lot of these fight scenes, it's well shot, it's clearly filmed, I can follow the action on screen, and overall, even though it's like PG-13, we don't want to kill anybody, can't be too violent or traumatize the kiddos too much, yeah, it's good fighting. This CGI Beetle Boy is kicking ass, and it's, at a baseline, it's fun to watch, right? Acting is good all across the board from our cast of characters, both protagonists and antagonists alike. The music that I mentioned ties into the 80s theme. This film does more good than it does bad. I think my only complaints are that, I'd say like one in every 5, maybe 10 effects. Doesn't look as good as the rest. It's a small gripe, and overall, like for the most part, the visuals look good, but sometimes it's just not as polished as it could be. The villains are kind of shallow. Susan Sarandon, sure, it's Nito Mosquito to see her back in a film, but like, I don't know, like she just was the corporate villain. The other guy, though, I forget his name, but the other guy was interesting. He doesn't get much development until literally the last like 10 minutes of the movie, and then you get like a nice little bit of backstory for him. But I would have liked them to do what they did with his character at the end, but more throughout the film as the film goes on. He felt like he like a layered and like traumatized character that I would have loved to have dived more into. But similar to that and the Blue Beetle lore, although we dip our toe into both of these things, we don't get a whole lot excavated there. It's just, I would like to have gotten more lore on the power of the scarab and how it works and the beetle. All I know is that it's alien. That's all I know. The comedy, look, I always say the same thing when it comes to this topic of like comedy or enjoyment in general, reviews in general. Let's not get too meta here. Comedy is subjective, I understand that, but I feel like the comedy's just kind of hit or miss in this film. A lot of the jokes do land, but the more juvenile ones didn't land. Or at least they did, because the little kid behind me was the only one in the theater who laughed at him. There was a surprising amount of people in this movie over a month after it's come out. And somehow there was only one fart joke in the entire movie. I mean, most of the comedy landed for me. It was charming, it was funny, it was cheesy, only a little bit cringy sometimes. Like, I'll wrap it up by saying what I kind of touched on earlier, which is that this movie, like in a vacuum, this movie is, without any context, I could easily see myself saying this movie's really good. Like, it's a really good film, but I guess I'm probably biased because right now I'm also kind of feeling that superhero comic book movie burnout. They just keep coming out, and there's, I don't know, maybe if they were spaced out more, maybe if there were breaks, maybe if they were of more consistent quality or high quality, I would feel different. But as it is, this movie, when in comparison to what's come before it, especially in the recent years, and it's formulaic, it's predictable, it has all the usual beats of a movie like this, so you're just kind of watching to see how this kid will make his way through it. Not to say the movie's bad, it's just another one of them. I mean, yeah, it was a fun little time in theaters. Like, you don't have to see it in theaters. I mean, definitely stream it when it comes out if you're interested in this kind of thing. But if superhero movies aren't your jam, or if it didn't look too appealing, you're not missing much. Overall, I'd say Blue Beetle's like a 3 out of 5. End of the day, I considered giving it a high 3 out of 5, but not much about the movie stands out as above average to me. Like, it's average. I don't think it does a whole lot to put itself above there. It's just another average superhero movie. That's all I gotta say about Blue Beetle. I'm glad that I finally did watch it before it left theaters. I'm glad that I at least got to do a review, put out my opinion and thoughts about it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode of whatever I do next, movie review wise. Yeah. All right. Goodbye, travelers.